That was incredible. About a week before I started, I asked to meet with Light, and she said, decided I think I want to retire or take a sabbatical. So I really want to thank you for taking a month to be here before that happened. I'd also like to acknowledge, I know that Light is the accompanist and has been for a number of years, a group of women that are known as Women's Song. Is that correct? Women's Song? Women's Song. If you are a part of that group, would you please stand and have come out today to be here in support of your dear friend? Wow. Thank you so much, and I know Light is touched deeply by your being here. And I am too, we all are. This is the final week, the final Sunday in January, and this month, my beginning here, and what we've talked about is what it means to discover and demonstrate the power within, to not only discover and demonstrate it, but to activate it. You know, to activate anything, whether it's your banking card or a credit card, to activate something means you have to take some sort of action, to put it into action. And so it is with our latent potential. That I guarantee you, Light did not just walk down one day and start playing the piano like she plays it now. There was a lot of skill, a lot of practice, a lot of mastering theory and technique to reach a point where the music now uses her as an instrument. And so it is with all of us. I truly believe that God, all that is, the divine, however we know this presence, has created us to be instruments. That's what all sacred scriptures teach us. And the Bible even says, do you not know that you are the temple of the living God, that we are these instruments meant to be played and used for divine purposes. We are meant to create heaven on earth, as what we call the Lord's Prayer teaches us, that we are meant to anchor peace and love and light and hope and hold the vision where that sort of reality will become our everyday reality. And even though we're born with that potential, it's a lot like musical potential or the skill to learn to pilot an airplane or whatever it is that we've learned, we had to take some steps to allow that raw potential to become a living reality, and so it is with us. So the past couple of weeks we've been looking at what's known as the Lord's Prayer. It's really probably better understood as the disciples' prayer. It shows up in the Bible as the closest followers, what the story tells us is the closest followers, sort of the hand-picked students of Jesus, this master teacher, ask him one day, Lord, teach us to pray. And that may not sound unusual to us, but what we have to remember is the men that were asking him that grew up in the Jewish tradition. They were born in a time in the Hebrew world and in a Jewish tradition where prayer was an inseparable part of daily life. They had been praying all of their lives. They knew how to pray. And so when they asked him, teach us to pray, what they were really saying is, you got something that we want. We see something taking place in your life, and we'd like to have it demonstrated in our life. And so they were asking to know what that was. And so what unfolded that we call the Lord's Prayer is more of a disciples' prayer, is really, it's not so much a prayer as it is a process. I call it a CPR treatment, a continual, persistent remembering. That if it's a treatment, if we can continually and persistently remember who we are and who you are, that we're all divine beings and live within that awareness, then life begins to work better. And so it calls us to really begin to think about what is our understanding of prayer. There's a great story I read a few years ago. I used to work for a Brio, a children's toy company, and I spent a lot of time in New York. And when I was in New York City, I read about a woman that lived there, and her family came to visit, her daughter and her grandchildren, and they wanted to visit St. Patrick's Cathedral. If anyone's seen that cathedral, it is just magnificent. So the grandmother took her daughter and these two young children to visit this famous St. Patrick's Cathedral. And the children walked around, and of the stained glass and the size and of everything. What they were really impressed with were all the votive candles. They'd never seen so many votive candles because hundreds of people go in this cathedral, and you know the tradition, you light a prayer in that Catholic tradition. So at the end, the person who had been giving a tour said, "Would each of you like to light a candle?" And the kids were so excited. And so they both lit candles, and the person explained, she said, "Now these are not like birthday candles. You don't blow them out when you're through. The candles continue to burn, and you make a prayer when you light the candle, and you expect God to answer your prayer." And so the little 5-year-old girl lit the candle, and her brother lit a candle. And when they finished, the woman said, "Now, do you have any questions?" And the little girl with wide eyes said, "No, but if there's a pony outside, it's mine." And I loved that, the innocence and the belief of a child. Well, prayer is not so much about demonstrating ponies, although you can and you may. But what prayer is really about is a conscious condition, or prayer is really about becoming a living demonstration. And so as we've done over the last couple of weeks, we looked at the first part of the prayer. When we look at this Lord's Prayer, it's in two halves. The first part of it is about the Creator. It is about being in touch with the creative presence, the one power, the one presence, our source. And then there's this hinge that turns, it says, "As it is in heaven, so let it be on earth." That's where it begins to activate. It's us. We are the ones that anchor the potential of heaven on earth, that it will happen through us and our efforts. And then the second part of the prayer becomes, you know the second part of the prayer, "Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts or our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." Now, the original prayer ended there. It didn't have the heading, the Lord's Prayer. It just ended, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." So I've always visualized that years ago when the monks were translating, that this one little monk with little round glasses got so excited when he read this prayer, he thought it just needs something else. So I'm going to say, "For thine is the power and the kingdom and the glory forever and ever, amen," to give it this crescendo ending. And it works. We even wrote the music with this big ending. But it didn't originally come like that, but it's okay. It just redirects us back. It creates sort of a circle and takes us back to the beginning. But so today we are going to look at this last part, that there is divine presence, the first half, and that divine presence is who we are. It's our true nature. And the second half is daily practice. When I was the minister on Maui, I had the opportunity to get to know Ram Dass. He lives on Maui, and he does a lot with the church there. And I had the opportunity one day to go to his home. And he told me a story that was really funny. I was asking him about his practice, and he told me that when he was a young student, he was so focused on meditating and this idea of being holy, that one day he was staying with his mother, or his mother was staying with him for a period of time, and he was just learning to meditate and trying to connect. So he would kind of sequester himself. He'd go back into a bedroom, close the door. He did not want to be disturbed. He was doing something very holy. And his mother, as a lot of mothers will do, just wanted to know, "Well, Richard, are you eating?" She would walk in and ask him, "Do you have tea?" "Richard, you need to eat a sandwich." And she kept bringing stuff in. And one day he said, "Mother, I'm trying to do something holy here." And he said he realized in that moment she was far more holy than he was. And he said, "What I've learned is it's about the daily practice. It's making it a daily practice." And so that last part of the prayer, these three things that talk about daily bread, forgiveness and debts, and temptation. I love that quote that Rita Mae Brown that says, "Lord, lead me not into temptation. I can find the way myself." All of us can find our way into a mess. But give us this day our daily bread. Now, to those that were hearing that, the minute they heard, "Give us this day our daily bread." And incidentally, it would have been more appropriate, what the prayer probably was, is, "You give us this day our daily bread." It was affirmative. "You forgive us as we forgive others. You lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil." But when this audience heard, "Give us this day our daily bread," you see, they immediately thought of their ancestors, what we know of the children of Israel being in the wilderness for 40 years. And during that time, do you remember what they were fed? Manna, which according to the story, the manna fell from heaven daily. Because they would try to keep it, but if they kept it, it would spoil or they would be punished. You couldn't keep it. You had every day had to be a fresh day. And so what this process was actually teaching them when he was saying, "Give us this day, you give us this day our daily bread," was calling them into a practice of daily awareness and gratitude. You know, the power of gratitude is very, very powerful. Sometimes we forget how powerful it is. I was in a grocery line and heard there were a long line and there were a couple of women, and one woman turned to the other and said, "Oh, congratulations, when is your baby due?" Well, there's two things you should never say to a woman. That's one of them. The second one is, "Nice costume, where are you going?" Don't go there. Don't go there. I was back far enough, I witnessed this. "Oh, congratulations, when is your baby due?" By the look of the woman's face, it was immediately apparent she was not expecting. Without a beat, the woman said, "Nice necklace. Where did you get that?" I'd been paying attention to a gratitude practice, and I thought, you know, it can get you out of trouble anywhere. She immediately switched to gratitude. "Nice necklace." The power of "give us this day our daily bread" is really a powerful teaching. It's about keeping ourselves fresh. It's about staying in a place where we have fresh eyes, a beginner's mind, as the Buddhist would say. It's about being in a place where we begin to appreciate what is right in front of us, those things. There was a study done by Professor Robert Emmons with the University of California at Davis. And the study, they wanted to find out if gratitude had implications on a person's life and in their health. Well, you know, all spiritual teachings extol the practice of gratitude and thanksgiving as something very helpful. So I always get excited when, from a scientific or academic approach, a study takes place to see what's happening. In this study that Robert Emmons did at the University of California at Davis, they divided people into 3 groups. The first group, they said, every day, at the end of the day, we want you to write down 5 things for which you are grateful. And they called them the gratitude group. The second group, they said, at the end of every day, we want you to write down 5 hassles, 5 things that were a pain that caused you hassle. Write down those things. And the third group was the general group. They instructed them, at the end of the day, write down 5 things that impacted you throughout the day. And they did this for a number of months. The groups didn't know what each other were doing, but they had what they called the gratitude group, the hassle group, and just the general group. At the end, the data and the statistics were pretty amazing. They said, let me find the exact quote of what they said. After the study, those in the gratitude group felt better about their overall lives and were more optimistic about their future. They reported fewer health problems than any of the other participants. But the unexpected benefit, they expected some of those things and they were able to document them. But the unexpected benefit is it raised what they called their set point for happiness. Because what they believe is that all of us sort of have a predisposition of how we see life. Just as our body sort of has a weight set point. Have you noticed that? That your body, through the ages, your body just sort of wants to stay at a certain weight. Well, so it is with our disposition, our outlook on life. But they realized that the set point for happiness actually increased. And what we know to be true spiritually is what that means is that a person's state of being, as they begin to practice gratitude, daily gratitude, and recognizing what was right in front of them every day, practicing this daily gratitude, that it awakened them to a higher state of being. Would you show me this first slide? Give us our first slide. There's some quotes. In the Gospel of Thomas, it says, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are living expressions of the living Creator. But if you do not know yourselves, you will dwell in poverty, and it is you who are that poverty." You see, the word poverty means a state of being where something is lacking, something is missing, there's not enough. And so as long as we perceive the world from a place that there's not enough, it's going to show up in our state of being. So the practice of gratitude, "Give us this day our daily bread," is a daily recognition of the gifts that are right in front of us already. The second quote is by Yogananda, who said, "I am submerged in eternal light. It permeates every particle of my being. I am living in that light. The divine spirit fills me within and without." This teaching is not simply a Christian teaching. It's found in Buddhism. It's found in Taoism. It is found in Native American traditions. It's really found in every major spiritual tradition. The third quote comes from Genevieve Barron, who was a New Thought writer in the early 1900s. She said it beautifully. She said, "As you grow in understanding as to who you are, where you came from, what the purpose of your being is, and how you are to fulfill the purpose for which you are intended, you will become a more and more perfect center through which the creative spirit of life can express itself." And Unity writer Eric Butterworth said it succinctly and beautifully when he said, "God can do no more for you than God can do through you." You see, this divine presence and daily practice are two of those linked together. And so that first part, "Give us this day our daily bread," is about realizing that the good that comes forth in our life is going to flow through us. And so as we learn to recognize it and give thanks, we increase our capacity to have things to give thanks about. The second thing that he said is, "Forgive us our debts," or "forgive our trespassers of those who have trespassed against us." Now again, what you have to understand is to that audience, to that Jewish audience, they would have told Jesus, they would have said, "But Rabbi, that's not right. According to the law of Moses, it is written in the book of Deuteronomy," they would have referred him back to where it actually said that every 7 years, at the end, this comes from Deuteronomy 15:1, "At the end of every 7th year, you must cancel the debts of everyone who owes you money. You must make a release." You see, in their tradition, you had the right to hold someone as prisoner. You had the right to make someone work for you to pay off a debt. And you could enslave another person legally for 7 years. But 7 is the number of completion. And every 7th year, they were then supposed to release everyone. So when he said to them, "Forgive them, and you will be forgiven," that was radical. Because what he was saying is, not only should we be daily aware of the bread in our life, we should also be willing to daily free ourselves. That to the extent that we hold another one responsible for our well-being, we ourselves are not free. When I lived in Hawaii, the Hawaiians they usually surround their house with what are called tea plants, not TEA, but TI. If you've been to Hawaii, you've seen them. They're everywhere. The Hawaiians use tea plants in ceremony just like we may use sage. They bundle those and they don't burn them, but they move them around to clear the energy. The tea plant is believed to have properties of cleansing. And so, as I said, they put them around their house. But what I noticed when I lived in Hawaii you live outside more than you live inside because it really is paradise when it comes to the weather. But every time they would go inside, they would go over, if they'd been outside very much at all, and especially coming home from work, they would walk over to a tea plant and rub the plant and then go in. And I talked to a person about that, and what she told me is, we must cleanse ourselves. That when we're out in the world, we take on things. We get contaminated in our mind. We hold grudges. We collect stuff. And so we wipe it off before we go into our house. And I thought, what a powerful practice to be able to do that each and every day. There's a story in the book that's called A Monastery Within, about a student that had been in Thailand. She was a professor that had to go to Thailand for a year, and while she was there, she immersed herself in the Buddhist tradition. She really wanted to learn to meditate. She wanted to liberate herself. She wanted to be enlightened. And so as often as she could, she would go and study. Well, her year passed, and it was time to go back home to her country, and she didn't feel like she'd accomplished anything. And so she went and she talked to the abbess, the female head of that monastery, and she asked, what can I do? How can I free myself? And the story she told, she said the abbess sat in the silence for a long period of time, and then she spoke and she said 2 things. Number 1, learn to breathe in an easy and relaxed way. Number 2, study what causes you to lose that ease. Everything you need to know will be found in that investigation. Learn to breathe easy and free. Learn to free yourself daily, to be clear and calm and centered, to be at peace. And then begin to recognize what causes you to lose that ease. And then inquire within. That's what it means for daily forgiveness. And so we have daily bread, daily gratitude, keeping ourselves clear. Jesus also told the disciples, when you go to someone's house or whatever you do, when you leave, shake the dust off your feet. You see, in that culture, their feet got very dirty, but this was not really about feet. This was about shake off the residue. You know, have you ever been in someone's energy field and you got out and you thought, oh. Has anyone ever been in your energy field and they got out and they thought, oh. Have you been in your own energy field and thought, how do I get away from myself? It's learning to shake it off. Because you see, when we learn to shake it off, we begin to create that line of distinction between the experiences that I have and who I am. You see, what I am and what you are is a presence of the divine. But the experiences that we have are where we get stuck. Would you give me that song, Light? The first one, our daily bread. The second one is about being clear daily. And then the third one is about distractions. Don't we live in an age of distractions? On my days off, I take cyber sabbaticals. I have to. The cell phone, the emails, we're just inundated with all of this stuff. And so, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. You lead us not into temptation. You do deliver us from evil. Is about the capacity to daily redirect. Daily redirect. Where my thoughts are taking me, where this attitude is taking me, where this action is taking me, where these habits are taking me. Are they taking me in a direction that I consciously am choosing to go? Or are they taking me in a direction that is undermining my own self? You see, it's about daily direction. Where do we want to go each and every day? Again, from the Buddhist tradition, there's the 8 verses of thought transformation say, in all actions I will examine my mind, and the moment a disturbing attitude arises, endangering myself or others, I will confront it and avert it without delay. What direction am I going? My last ministry, I brought in a Buddhist teacher to teach a meditation series class. A bunch of people took it, and it really helped. It married well their other spiritual practices. One of the women, I have permission to share the story, her name is Clara. Clara was really embracing this meditation practice because she wanted to simplify her life. She wanted peace in her life. And she said, so one day she went to a luncheon with a group of ladies, and there was a woman there who was getting all over her nerves. She said the woman was obnoxious, loud, just talking, and she was paying attention to herself, and she realized, I'm no longer breathing easy. I just want to tell that woman to just be quiet. And she realized that this was not so much about the other person. It was about her need to stay focused in the direction that she was choosing to go. And so without saying anything, she's there at the lunch, she just began to breathe, put her shoulders back, opened her heart, and began to just send out love and light, not even specifically to that person, but in order to keep moving in the direction of her own peace, her own well-being, her own happiness. She was able to do that and get recentered and enjoyed the lunch. At the end of the lunch, the waiter came and started giving out checks, and she didn't get one. And she said, "Excuse me, where's my check?" And the woman said, "I want to buy your lunch today. I don't even know you, but I just want to buy your lunch." What I know to be true is when we bring our own self into a state of wholeness, when we bring our own self into a state of peace, when we bring our own self into a state of abundance, of love, of acceptance, then and only then will the world around us be reflected back to us in a way that we're wanting to see our world. And it is only when we can hold that for ourselves. You see, that's what the great prayer was. There's the divine presence and the daily practice. So that as you embody these divine ideas, every idea needs a structure, needs something for it to become a living reality. Well, you are the divine idea that we call Christ. In Unity, we see Christ as the divine potential inherent with every person. Buddhism calls it the Atman. Other traditions call it the divine spark. That we are the divine idea that is giving birth to all of these things. And so our capacity to each and every day give thanks, keep ourselves clear, and keep ourselves going in that daily direction are so important. And so a practice this week would be doorways. Each of us every day find ourselves walking through doorways. A wonderful practice this week will be for us every time we walk through a doorway to take a deep breath. Let me be grateful. Let me just shake off what's not mine. And let me redirect myself to be about the business I want to be about, to shifting that state of consciousness. There's a song I want to use to take us into a time of meditation, and this actually comes from a Zen proverb that says, "When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there's harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world." It goes like this. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. When there's order in the nation, there is peace in the world. Sing it with us. When there's light in the soul, there is beauty in the person. When there's beauty in the person, there is harmony in the home. When there's harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. When there's order